Welcome back to Mindset Rebooted. I'm Romi Sunga.
And I'm Sam Hay. And today we are going to be talking about how the Congressional Budget Office released a report stating that Social Security Trust Fund will be running out in 2033. And we're going to discuss what that means for us and how we can secure our financial futures.
All right, Sam. So get us up to speed. What's going on with Social Security? Like, why is this a big thing? Why is it important for you and I and our listeners?
Well, yeah, it's a big deal because you and I and our listeners, we're all hardworking people. Out of our paychecks, we pay towards Social Security. A lot of us may not notice it going, but I'm pretty sure we know that the government is taking a whole bunch of different things, out of our checks, and it's going somewhere. We all would like to stop working at some point and be able to, just enjoy life. And so you need finances in order to do that. And Social Security was implemented to be able to help support that idea. Currently, Social Security is funded in a couple of ways, right? It comes through our payroll taxes, right? And it also will come from the trust fund that's set up. Now, with that trust fund running low, what's going to end up happening is we're just going to only rely on the money that's coming from payroll taxes. And with that, there'll be about a 23 to 25% decrease in the benefits that are distributed to retirees who get Social Security. Now, that's going to be a big deal because at that point, you have less money to help support yourself. And if you have a family that you're supporting, well, that's less money to support your family as well. Because Social Security is also not just to support you as a retiree, but it's also to help support some people with disabilities and things like that. So this is a big deal and people are concerned about it. They're like, well, Congress, what are you going to do about it? You've been debating this issue for about 2 decades now, and there's been no action. It seems like this is getting worse and worse if you don't take action sooner rather than later. What do we do? So this is the problem that we're facing. But what I really think we should be focusing on is how do we move past being reliant on social programs that are funded by the government, and how do we get to the state of being self-sustaining? How do we get to the point of being able to count on us rather than counting on the common man or woman in Congress, for our financial futures?
That whole non-reliance on the government, that makes sense to me, because when you brought up this topic of, hey, the trust fund is going to run out by 2033, I'm like, so? Because I don't care about the government supplementing my retirement. And so that gave me like having that mentality gives me that, I don't stress out about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's very important for us to find ways to get other people to not stress about it, which is where we stop relying on the government.
I know, like, for people like you and myself, like, we might be like, well, it doesn't matter for us because we're not relying on the government, but there's just so many people who are. And so that's the whole point of this conversation, because when you are reliant on the government for your financial future and you're not even sure what's happening with your funds, you're not even aware of anything that happens, well, now you're susceptible to falling flat on your face, and you really have time right now. If you're around our age, at least, if you're like in your 20s or 30s, you have time right now to make a change. You have time to set things in place so that Social Security is a no factor for you when you hit your retirement age.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we have time. So it's really, we have 10 years to prepare ourselves, 10 years that we could, gain new skills, get promotions, work somewhere else. And I think that's what gives us that sense of relief, that we have time. But that sense of relief, it could be a trap too, because that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be working and having urgency to start accumulating new skills, finding new ways to increase our earning capacity and our lifetime earning capacity as well. Because when I think about it, so for me, it doesn't really matter. But what about my mother? What about my aunt and my uncle who are older, who are nearing retirement age if they haven't reached that yet? This affects them, and they don't necessarily have the time that you and I have to increase our earning capacity.
Yeah, and a couple things. I think because we're thinking about family, right? Like all the people that you just mentioned, that's why it actually does matter to me, right? So that in and of itself matters, because what happens to one person, it affects a lot of us. And, if it's a loved one, of course, that's going to affect you. So that matters to me in that regard. But then the other thing I want to double back on is the notion of just the whole only having 10 years. I think really it just depends on how old you are, right? And what you got going on for you. Because yes, although the trust fund, currently is set to be depleted by 2033, which is a decade from now, we have to remember that like if you're like 30 years old, you still have breath in your body and you still have activity of your limbs. You have the ability to set yourself up well past those 10 years. And so there's a couple of ways in which you can do it so that you are not struggling.
There's really two ways, right? I think you and I, we discussed earlier that there's the way of starting your own business, or you gain more skills and you just work somewhere else that pays you more, right? Those are the two essential ways that we've identified.
Yeah, let's dive into that. So gaining more skills. I'll save that for a second. Let's start out with the job, right? If you're at a job right now, one of the things that I wholeheartedly believe you're going to have to get comfortable with, especially if you plan on being a lifelong worker, is you're going to need to be okay with renegotiating for higher salary. That's just something you have to do. That or job hop. In fact, I forgot where I saw the statistic, but I saw the average time that people spend these days at jobs are typically 2 years. And I think it's not just because people are not committed to staying with a company. It's really because what people have found is that they will get higher offers from other companies than the companies that they're currently with. And you need to be able to do that because that's going to help you in terms of securing your financial future, right? If I am getting an offer from another company for an additional 20 to 100K, of course, it's going to be a more attractive option than staying with a company that's only going to offer me an additional 5K, right? When I think about the whole Social Security thing, especially it being supplemental income, right? It's not really meant to just be your mainstream of income. In fact,
that's why it's called supplemental.
It's supplemental, right?
Yeah.
It's about 30%, 37% rather of retirees' income currently. It's about 37% on average. And so when you think about it in those terms, it means that even if Social Security wasn't running out, the trust fund at least, you still need to find a way to secure your financial future. This just gives you even more incentive to do that. And so getting comfortable with renegotiating for a higher salary is one of the ways in which you can do it.
For some of our audience, negotiating a salary is something that they're just never done. So just getting in the habit of negotiating. So not necessarily renegotiating. It's just, hey, hey boss, I'm currently getting paid this much. I've accomplished XYZ this year. I'm looking to get more money. That situation right there is already a negotiation. And it's so casual because a lot of people, the way I used to think about negotiation, it's a boiler room type of thing. Me versus you, we're going at it, cutthroat. I'm sweating, I'm perspiring because of how stressful it is. When in actuality, negotiation is really just a conversation. Just bringing up hey, I had this thought because of X, Y, Z. Does that sound fair to you? It could be that simple. And I think just starting off those habits of starting simple conversations will make it easier for everyone to negotiate.
Yeah, and I think when you go to the negotiation table, a couple things. One, you need to go in with confidence, the confidence that comes from knowing you add value, right? If you don't add value, then obviously there's nothing to talk about, right? It's why are you even in my office? But when you add value, one, that's probably not even going to have to be a conversation because people are going to be, trying to do whatever they can to retain you. Or even though you have the conversation, you're going to go in there with leverage. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence, you're adding skills, you're actually making the company, the department, whatever you're affiliated with better just by what you bring to the table. That's one.
Well, I really like that point because when you get bullet points of your successes to negotiate internally, you're actually also setting yourself up to shop the market. The market's going to see, oh, okay, Sam, you're putting up all these awesome bullet points. Yeah, we want you, bro. How much is it going to cost for me to take you away?
That was my second point. Right? And documenting that though, right?
Yeah, documenting and announcing it. Announcing it. Just get it on LinkedIn real quick, on Indeed, on ZipRecruiter. Because we got to think about it. Businesses are constantly looking for people. Although we like to think that a business has 100% retention or zero churn on their employees, that's not realistic. There's always gaps happening in the workforce. And so companies are always trying to find new recruits. So it's in our best benefit to actually, even though we're not actively shopping for a new job, just putting it out there to let people know, like, hey, you're actually winning at your job.
Absolutely. And so that's one way in which you can, help secure your financial future. The other way in which you can do it is by gaining new skills, right? Because maybe you are someone who's in the workforce, but you're not a skilled laborer, right? Maybe you're an unskilled laborer, and maybe you need to go back to school, or maybe you need to get certifications, go to a trade school, something like that, so that you can add value like we were talking about previously. That's something that's going to absolutely take you to the next level in terms of earning potential, which will make relying on Social Security as supplemental income as a no factor. And that's the other thing we want to do.
Yeah, and the whole thing about getting new skill to help the company, those are so relevant. Like, imagine you're working at a small company where they're doing print services, like printing paperwork and books for the school nearby, but they don't really know how to market their business. It's a profitable business already, but if you come in like, hey, I'm learning how to create marketing tools for us, so we could be on social media, so we could have an email campaign, so we could have different sales channels to help build the business. And do you want to try it? And then you guys try it. The company makes 40% more revenue than it would have without the new thing that you introduced. Well, now you increased your value to the company. Like, yo, you just made me 40% on top of what we would have made this month. I'm willing to pay you more because you gave me so much more money.
Yeah, I actually know somebody, I won't say their name, but I know somebody who did that exact thing for their company, and their company created a new position for them.
I love that. Literally on my LinkedIn, there's someone I know. He's an individual contributor, and he's a sales development rep. So pretty much a sales rep guy, right? But because his interest was in marketing, the way he approached his prospect was creating fun little videos that tease and get interest, and he was starting to get success. And then he told his manager, like, hey, I'm more interested in marketing. Here's what I've been doing, and here's the results of it. They're like, you're our very first community manager now. They just opened up that whole new position for him because they're like, we know that you love marketing. We know that you love the creative side of things, and you're still making us money. We're going to reward you for that.
Yeah. And
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And it's a win-win situation. Let's break down exactly how this is a win-win situation. So aside from the obvious reasons that he just added value to the company, he also added value by saving them money. They could have spent money on recruiting a new person, going through the interview process, spending money on training and all of those different things. So all of that stuff costs money. Maybe he would have been dissatisfied staying there if they'd not given him a new position and recognized his talent. So if he would have left, they would have had to spend money trying to replace him as an individual. All of that stuff costs a lot of money. But when you already have somebody who's already vetted, they are already part of your company, they're already trained, they are already skilled. In fact, if they need to do any type of training, their replacement, they're still in office, still in house, because they already know everybody. They're already familiar with the culture. They've made the culture better. And now you've, homegrown them essentially and moved them into a different place. Now they're more loyal. They may perform at an even higher level, especially since now they have more authority to do so. So they're not capped in terms of what they can do. Like, there's just so many different benefits that come to hiring from within. So when you bring to the table these extra skills, that is what I call a win-win situation, aka the best business deal ever.
It's extra skills with actual metrics too. Like, we need to show like, hey, this works. You can't just be like saying, hey, I took a marketing course over the weekend and I got a certification. Now you should pay me more for it. No, you need to like, hey, Actually, the last 2 months, I got a certification in marketing. I've used what I learned in those certifications in the last 2 months, and here's my positive results compared to my previous results.
Yeah.
Is this bringing more value for you, boss? If so, how can we increase whether that's my responsibilities? How can I increase my my input to the company and help them out more? And by the way, I also am interested in getting something in return for all these extra efforts. That's the negotiation aspect, and it makes it easier to negotiate because we have leverage by acquiring the skills and showing proof that the skills will be in the benefit for everybody. Win-win situation.
Yeah, and then if you do shop around, you can show this is how
what
I
I've
did
done.
it.
Yeah. So like documenting your wins is imperative to everything, right?
Exactly.
It's imperative to anything. Now, I kind of want to move on. So what if you're working there, you don't really necessarily want to stay in that industry that you're in. Especially if we have 10 years, me personally, I would look into like, okay, well, which industries have the highest earning capacities right now compared to me? So the example I love is like if I'm in a newspaper industry, that has a lower earning capacity just overall as an industry compared to telecommunications. It's because we know everyone needs telecommunications, cell phones, laptops, all the whole shebang, but no one really is doing newspapers anymore. So like maybe that's where I want to switch over to telecommunications to have a higher earning capacity. Because I could be awesome selling newspapers, but if there's not that many customers buying newspapers, I'm not going to make money. The business is not going to make money. I might even lose a job because the business might fold. So we have to look into industries that will just have a higher earning potential for all of us.
Yeah, having a higher earning potential, and then focus on how you can prove that your current skills are transferable, right? So I think that is something that's undervalued. I know a lot of people only focus on gaining new skills, but they don't really just focus on capitalizing on the skills they already have. And so when you get with certain people, not just resume writers, but people who are really good in interview prep or whatever the case is, they're able to help you tell your story in a way that you probably weren't able to tell it by yourself, right? And that comes with understanding what you bring to the table, understanding the new industry that you're trying to get into and what you have done. How does that translate over into the new sector? A lot of people will take a chance on your soft skills and other skills that you may have because they can see the value, but it's really going to be all in how you relay that message.
Yeah, and I'm going to use sales as an example for this, is that if you have experience selling, like say dance lessons, that's my background. I'm used to making those cold calls, reaching out to the companies, whether they're enterprise or small business or nonprofit. I'm used to just calling them and pitching what I got. That ability to cold call is already very, very high value towards a tech company because they're like, we need people who could cold call and sell our tech, our SaaS product, our service as a software product, or our fintech product. And so that's a transferable skill there of just being able to call someone out of the blue. You think it's easy, but it's not that many people are willing to make those cold calls, get hung up on. Very few people do it, and that's why sales pays out a lot.
Yeah, and that requires both hard and soft skills, right? So, just that resilience alone, that says a lot, right? Like people don't want to hire people who are going to just quit on them when the going gets tough. They want some tough people who can make it through.
And before you move on, sorry to interrupt. Now, here's the thing. So that's the transferable skills that I could do those cold calls. Well, then I also have these metrics of success, like, hey, I've launched over 75 events in Sacramento, in the district of Sacramento. That's something that is verifiable. It's showing that my cold calling does work. And then, okay, those 75 events, how many people showed up, how many vendors, like as soon as I'm able to say, this is the skill, here's a result of my skill, and this is the benefit that maybe the company or the district got because of what I did. Now the employer or the recruiter is going to be like, okay, I can see how you could fit in my stratosphere for this company that I'm recruiting for.
And let me add to that thing you just said. In that situation, also there is power in getting referrals, okay? Like the reviews from his satisfied customers and the referrals, that in and of itself is going to be proof of concept as well. Because people want to see like, okay, you're saying that this worked. It looks like it worked. But now I also want to see that this is validated. Kind of like when you see endorsements on like LinkedIn and things like that. People want to see that other people are also saying, yes, this is verified. This person is big stamped.
No, I agree with that. And I want to pivot too, because we've been talking about people who are maybe 1099 or W-2 employees. What if someone wants to start their own business, right? Because all of this comes from like starting a business or getting a newer, higher paying position. They're all based on having skills and working in an industry that has a higher earning potential. Mm-hmm. And so you and I, we love small business. We love people starting their side hustle and being self-employed on top of their 9-to-5. Can you talk about that? Talk about the starting the business, why people should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, let me say this. Just to recap, remember, this is so that we can make sure we are not just relying on Social Security.
Yeah, I just so love the conversation of gaining skills, of talking to other people. I forgot that's what we're doing. But that shows like, hey man, what we're telling you, we live it.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah, I just want to continue to always tie it back to that, because I know we're talking about these different things, but I want to make sure this is making sense to you all, right? And let's just say this. I don't think that starting a business is for everyone. Okay. I want to be very real with you guys, because if you are afraid to take any type of chances, any type of risks, it will not be good for you to do this. But for you who are willing to do it, okay, the reason why this can be great for you is because when it comes down to retiring, if you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business going, that you're not in the day-to-day operations, but it's working for you, well, there goes that supplemental income. Goodbye Social Security. Like, you don't even need to worry about that. So that's just one of the reasons. Two, it's because when you own your own thing, no one can really just take that away from you. I mean, of course, you're getting some legal disputes, but I'm just saying generally, no one can take that away from you. That's something that you own. It will continue to pay you, and you can pass it along to others. So when you talk about having a legacy or setting your children or whoever it is that you want up for financial success, that is one way in which you can help them get ahead of the power curve, right? So that is another reason why you should do it. And listen, I think it was like in April 2022, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they reported that about 400,000 new businesses were filed for. So in 2022, so that shows that this is something that is a growing idea. People are saying, yes, we recognize that we need to not just rely on government. We need to actually go out there and get it for ourselves. And this is one of the ways in which you can do it to support yourself, support your family, and live out the dreams, live out the life that you want to live. So those are all the great benefits of it. But if you're someone who's like, oh yeah, I want to start a business, but realistically, I don't have the money to start a business, well, I want you to realize that there are plenty of ways to do it without you having the funds up front. One, understand that there are plenty of nonprofits who are looking to help fund people who have innovative ideas, people who want to jump into small businesses who don't have the funding right now, because it's, again, a win-win situation for the both of you. One, you get to start your business. You get to go ahead and jump forward in achieving your dreams. And two, they are fulfilling their mission, and they can now justify why they would be receiving more funding to support them. So when you think about this all, it's helping out everyone as a whole. Don't be afraid to ask for funding, because it has to be spent anyway. And so some of these resources, you can, look at the SBA, SBA.gov, maybe grants.gov, things like that. Do your research and see who's willing to fund small businesses like the ones that you're running, because it's out there and you need to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So SBA stands for Small Business Association. Grants.gov. I love all these. These are all like federal entities, but you also have your local entities, your local chamber of commerce, or your downtown partnership. Like as we speak in Sacramento and in Elk Grove, both of their chamber of commerces are doing rounds where they're going to give $10,000 grants for people to pitch their startup. And like, this is your local economy at work that's trying to give you the help you need to start your passion, to start your business. And I also want to kind of go back. So like for people who say I'm not a business person, like you mentioned, business is not for everyone. But if you're telling yourself, if you found yourself, this is what happened to me is I always like, what if I just do it myself? I feel like I could do it better than my boss. I feel like I could do it better than the company I'm working for. Then that might be an indicator that you could try it. And the thing with business too is recognizing that it's not an overnight success thing. Mm-hmm. It is understanding that trying it over a period of time and seeing what works and getting a taste of it and noticing like, hey, I could actually do this. And then, okay, let me try a little bit more. And next thing you know, you have a profitable business over time. And I think a lot of people, when they say they're not a business person, is because they don't think they could succeed over one weekend. It Correct. Is succeeding over time. That is what we talk about. That's what we mean when we say starting a business. Like we have 10 years, right? Projected 10 years before the trust fund for Social Security is empty. Well, we have that much time to test, to learn new skills, to see what works out in the world and see if we are really a business person, or maybe we just want to be a high performing employee. Everything's good. Test.
Yeah, test. It absolutely, you have to test. Everything involves some type of risk. But the other thing is like putting into perspective, like you said, the 10 years until the trust fund runs out. A lot of businesses are not profitable until maybe like year 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that's very, very common. In fact, you will more than likely suffer losses at the beginning when you first start your business. And when you go into that, understanding that is reality, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable with doing it because you will eventually get to a profit, but you have to continue to be persistent, right? And you have to understand that it's not an overnight success. So understanding that will allow for you to continue to take yourself to the next level. But the great news is, depending on your age, because I don't necessarily just recommend this for anybody. Like if you're old listening to this, I just want to say thank you so much for your wisdom.
Well, first off, what is old? What is old? Old is relative, right?
Old is relative, I guess. Yeah, that's the politically correct term. Yeah, you're only as old as you feel. That's what I'll say. You're only as old as you feel. But according to Social Security.
So you're talking about retirement age.
Yeah, retirement age. I mean, look, you know what? Let's be politically correct. Retirement age. Okay. We'll say this. Retirement age was once, minimum age was 62 with the full age of 65. Then I got bumped up to 67. And then I got bumped up. I guess it will get bumped up to 70. Okay. And the reason why these things are going to continue to increase is because life expectancy is increasing. And so that may be very realistic. And so if you're focused on only receiving Social Security, bad news, you will probably experience working until you're 80 before you collect it, depending on when,
On a side note, like, France, they're violently and regular protesting the increase in age before you reach retirement right now.
Yeah.
They're like, I saw it on TikTok, people are protesting in the streets of France because they're like, no, don't bring it from 65 to 67. They want to keep it as low as possible.
Yeah.
They don't want to people don't want to work that long.
People don't want to work.
And so that is an example of what happens if you rely too much on the government.
Yeah.
You freak out over this stuff, but for us, for you, the listener, our goal is to set ourselves up that we don't care. We don't care if they're like, hey, retirement age is 67, 70, or 80 or whatever. It doesn't matter to me, man. I made my money. I figured out how to make money years ago before you brought up this situation to me.
Right. I mean, that's the goal. Like honestly, I'm just going to be as blunt as possible. Okay. My goal is to make so much money that I don't even remember how to pronounce Social Security.